Tonight, boys and girls, you're going to watch a video of division using area models. I'm going to start with a very basic problem that I know you can solve in your head, but since it's so simple, it will make explaining it a little easier. To start with, we want to think about 325 divided by 25 as the multiplicative inverse of 25 times some number n is going to equal 325. And to get a smart estimate for our quotient, we will round 25 to 30. And we know that 3 is already compatible with 3, so we will round that to 300. And using the knowledge that you already have from previous units, we know that 300 divided by 30, basic facts, is 3 divided by 3 is 1. That 0 cancels that 0, and there's 1 left. So our estimate should be about 10. Now, let me zoom in a little more here so my hand's out of the way. With an area model, we are simply keeping in mind the formula for area, which is length times width. And remember, we use a cursive L so it doesn't look like a 1. We're going to set up our division problem with our divisor as the width, and we will have an unknown length yet, so we'll just kind of make our rectangle open on the end so that we know whatever number n we find times 25 is going to equal this whole area in here, which will be 325. Now what we want to do is use some simple numbers to do this with easy mental math. Starting with, we know that 25 times 10 is going to work. And that will take a nice chunk out because that will be 250. Now we're going to come down and set up our division problem as if we were going to do the standard algorithm, but we're not. We're going to do some repeating subtraction. So we'll take our 325. We will mark down that, I'm going to drag this nicely down my margin, that we're going to take out a chunk of 10 groups of 25, and we know that's 250. So we will see how much is left in our area to find. We'll simply do the subtracting. Going to borrow, go next door, get 10 more, whoops, 10, 7, 1. If I can do the math, it's early in the morning. Don't worry about the compare part. We're just taking out large chunks. Now, if you know anything about quarters being 25 cents and 75 cents, we know that 3 quarters will equal 75 cents. So we know we can take 3 of them out, and 3 times 25 is 75. We're going to show over here that we took out 3 groups of 25, and that was equal to 75. We subtract, and then we can close off the box to our area. Whoops, there we go. Very basic, very simple. We still want to do our check of our quotient times divisor equals our big old dividend. So we'll put our quotient up here, which now is 10 plus 3 is 13, or over here, we can do the same. Whoops, helps if I show you. 10 plus 3 is 13. Coming over to our check, we're going to do our quotient 13 times 25. 5 times 3, 15, carry a 1, 5 and 1 is 6. Put down that 0 placeholder so that my partial product lands in the right place value. 2 times 3 is 6. 2, add 5, 12, 3. And we're good. And that is all there is to it. So what I'd like you to do is get that one in your notes for an example. If you need to rewind this video to see how things work, please do that. And then I have a problem for you to try on your own. It's a little more difficult. And that one is going to be 540 divided by 12. So again, I want you to think about the multiplicative inverse, that 12 times some number n is going to be equal to 540. Knowing we're looking for compatible numbers. And 12 is not compatible with 54. You could round this to the highest place value and find something that is compatible, or you can think about it as 12 because you know your facts of 12. And then you could keep that as a 12 and decide to round this to something more compatible. And again, you're going to set up your area model with an open rectangle. You will put your divisor out here, keeping in mind that the full area, whenever you find it, is going to have to equal 540. And you will set up your division house, but this time you go all the way down, and we've got 12 divided into 540. So go ahead and do that problem, pause this video, and when you come back to it, you can then check yourself. Well, hopefully you finished that problem, and now I will show you how I solved it. Because I'm not a big fan of my 12s, I could have left this as 12 and rounded that to 48, but I like my 10s. So I'm going to change this to a 10 times n is going to be equal to 540, because that's an easy one. Knowing that 540 divided by 10 is going to be equal to basic fact of 54 divided by 1 is 54, and that 0 cancels that 0. So that was a nice easy one. I know that my final quotient should be somewhere around 54. Now over here, I am going to keep this in mind, and I'm going to think about that as 10. Try to do this 20 times is pretty simple, because I can do 2 times 12 is 24. So knowing that's not too bad, because 10 times 12 is 120, right? 10 times 12, 120, double 120, 240. I want to take as large of a chunk as I can, but still using mental math. You'll notice I'm not doing any math calculations to the side. It's got to be all in your head. So you might have smaller amounts up here, and that's fine as long as, in the end, you have the right quotient. So I'm going to take my 240 and know that that was 20 groups of 12. So I've got to record that out there. Subtract, and that's going to be 300. Now again, using all that thinking I used before, so I don't have to add my extra work, I'm going to take another group of 20 out, which will still be 240. Make sure you mark down that you took another group of 20. And subtract 0, going to borrow, I keep making that a 2. 60 left, and because I know my facts of 12, I happen to know that 5 of them is going to complete my area model. 5 groups. Notice how I'm lining up my place values here because I know I'm going to have to add them later. And 5 groups of 12 is 60. Subtract, and I'm all done. I need to add that up, which I can do easily mentally. 20 plus 20 is 40, and 5 is 45. So my final quotient is 45. And then I will come over to the side and do my check, which is quotient times divisor equals dividend. Quotient 12. Now I know that my quotient goes on top, and my divisor goes in the bottom, but you can flip-flop those because of that good old commutative property. I'm going to keep my quotient on top. 2 times 5 is 10. Carry my 1. 8 and 1 is 9. Put down my placeholder 0 so that I can make sure that my next partial product lands in the right place value. No thinking necessary. 1 times 45 is simply 45. Add them up. 9 and 5 is 14. Carry my 1, and we're correct. So make sure you've checked your work, seen where something is confusing, and come to class ready for questions.